I've recently found a ton of citadels, and in this video, I'm going to show you the strategy I used, how to spot when they're nearby, and some tips to make the citadels easier and more profitable. Before we get into it, let me just say that if you're not near tier 15 maps yet, this probably isn't worth worrying about too much. You should focus on working your way through the maps and strengthening your character. You're going to need to be able to clear tier 15 maps before it's worth attempting a citadel. There have been a lot of wild theories about the best way to find these citadels, but I think the reality is much simpler than a lot of people were initially thinking. From what I can tell, the farther you travel from the starting point, the better your odds of finding them are. To be clear, I'm not the first one to figure this out. I've heard it from a few different creators, most notably on the Still Sane podcast with Talkative Tri and SnooBAE.
About a year ago, Jonathan was being interviewed about the endgame progression for the Atlas. Somebody said, this looks a lot like Delve, the way this is set up. And exactly, that's exactly what we had in mind. It was inspired by Delve. They said, so if it's like Delve, does that mean you want to go far from the start and that you're going to have better results? And they said, yes, it's basically what we have in mind. So the further you go out from the start, the more content you're going to see, the better the results will be. And then the interviewer tried to get specifics out of it, but they couldn't get it, So I took that to the bank. I said, okay, well, the last thing I'm going to do is try to clear everything in my vision. I am just going to take one direction. I don't care which one it is, south, north, east, west, and we're just going to go, baby. We're just going to all the way there, 20 screens away, just zoom out the direction. And you know what happened? I didn't see any citadels for a little while, and then suddenly a couple popped up. And then a couple more, and then they started popping up with more and more frequency. And before you knew it, when I was about 10 to 15 screens away, I was seeing up to 3 citadels on one screen. Okay,
really?
So, yeah, they pop up like candy, dude. They're just like candy. And I just took it for granted, and then I kept seeing these videos like, hey man, you gotta check the position of the corpses on the towers, and you gotta look at this and that. I'm like, what are these people on? I don't know about that. I don't know about all that. I just find them. They're just there. They just keep going the same direction. They're just there. Well, I don't know what you guys are. The water, the mountains, doesn't matter. The towers, I clear towers. I do tier 15. They're just there. And it just kind of occurred to me. I think that there's not really any secret sauce to it. It's just set up the same way Delve is. It's just programmed for them to spawn more the further away you get.
And his experience seems to be the case for me too. At first, I didn't find any and was mostly clearing out towers close to the starting area. And then I spread out a little bit more, and eventually I did find one, but that was the only one I found for quite a while. Eventually, I decided to focus on traveling south, and sure enough, once I got far enough away, they started popping up all over the place. So my suggestion is to just pick one direction and travel out as far as you can, picking up towers along the way to reveal the map. Eventually, you will start to see them. Keep an eye out for these types of buildings which surround the citadels. Each citadel has a unique look and surrounding tiles, which you can often spot before you can see the actual citadel itself. For example, here I can see there's a citadel nearby. I can't quite get to it because I don't have a path to get there, but whenever I can circle around to it, I know there's a citadel waiting for me. This is the Iron Citadel. It can be found in forest and grass biomes, is surrounded by these little wooden houses, and it contains the Act 1 boss, Count Geonor. This is the Copper Citadel. It can be found in desert biomes, and is surrounded by these little tents, and has the Act 2 boss, Jamanra the Abomination. And this is the Stone Citadel. I found it in mountain and grass biomes, but it may be possible to spawn in others. It's surrounded by these small pyramids, and has the Act 3 boss, Doriani. For traversing the Atlas, you can use any tier waystone you want, so low-level ones will allow you to cover more ground while you're clearing a path. You'll need tier 15 waystones with good modifiers for the citadels themselves, so what I did for the most part was use tier 12 to 14 for traversing maps, unless it was a map that I really hated and just wanted to get through as fast as possible, and then I'd use a really low tier one. But using tier 12 to 14 on the others allowed me to quickly complete them while still having some decent drops along the way, and allowed me to continue to farm up the drops for the endgame systems like Breach and Delirium Splinters, since those only drop in tier 11+. Once you've found and are ready to attempt a citadel, you'll need to get a good tier 15 waystone. When I say good, I'm referring to one that's preferably got 6 modifiers and where the suffixes aren't too dangerous for your character. This is because the crisis fragments that drop from the boss, which are needed to face the pinnacle boss, have a drop rate that's tied to a waystone drop chance for the map. I believe somewhere around 400% drop chance it becomes possible for 2 fragments to drop. But once you get high enough, I believe it's possible that 3 or even more could drop. I completed 2 Citadels with around 450%, and those both dropped 2 fragments, and then I also completed a third one at about 410%, and that only dropped 1. Waystone drop chance can be increased through the passive tree nodes as well as precursor tablets, but it's largely going to come from the waystone itself. Generally speaking, the more suffixes on a waystone, the higher the drop chance. A rare waystone with 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes will be around 300%, so technically, for the best results, you could use a Val Orb on your waystone and hope that it converts the 3 prefixes to suffixes, which could boost that waystone drop chance up to around 600%. Or you could get one with 6 suffixes from the trade website. I don't really recommend this though, unless you're very confident with your character and build, because the suffixes can make it very difficult, and you'll want to choose which ones you go in with carefully. One thing that I recommend doing that will make the fight way easier is to remove any boss skill tree points that you have allocated. Because the Citadels are considered boss maps, the difficulty increase that you have allocated there affects Citadel bosses as well, and can make them way harder. Either way, when you do go into the map, you will have some smaller enemies to defeat before you will fight the boss. I actually found these enemies that I had to clear before the boss to be much more dangerous than the boss itself. That said, don't go into any part of the Citadels overconfident, because one wrong move could end it, and if you thought dying and losing a normal map felt bad, losing a Citadel feels way worse. Trust me. I won't bother explaining each of the individual boss fights, because if you've made it this far in the game, you should know their fights and mechanics pretty well from the campaign. It's basically the same fight you did back then, just leveled up and boosted by your waystone suffixes, and the boss tree skill points if you kept them allocated. When I fought them, they each died pretty quickly, but again, don't get overconfident. Play carefully so you don't lose the map and your fragments. When they die, they'll drop at least 1 crisis fragment, and potentially more based on that waystone drop chance. You'll need 1 of each fragment to face the pinnacle boss, Arbiter of Ash, back at the Burning Monolith, so you can either save them to attempt that, or you can sell them if you just like to make some money. At the time of recording, the fragments from the Iron and Stone Citadel are going for about 50 to 60 Exalted Orbs, and the ones from the Copper Citadel are going for over 200. I believe that this may be due to the Copper Citadel being less common in general than the other 2. I'm not certain if that's the case, but it's definitely the one that I've found the least of in my atlas. I haven't actually fought the Arbiter of Ash yet myself, so I won't get into that fight in this video, but I may make one at some point in the future. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything or how your experience looking for these compared to mine. If you enjoyed the video or it helped you out at all, be sure to give it a like or subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton and is greatly appreciated. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.